I was sitting in my attorney's office, a week before my daughter's wedding, signing papers that would make her hate me. My hand shook as I put my name on the last page. "I know she'll never forgive me for this," I said quietly, looking up at David, my lawyer of 20 years. He adjusted his glasses and asked the question I'd been asking myself for months. "Robert, are you absolutely sure about this?" I stared at the document, the irrevocable trust agreement, locking away $12 million from my own daughter. $12 million I'd just earned from selling the engineering company I'd built from nothing over 40 years. But here's the thing. I wasn't doing this to punish Emily. I was doing it to protect her. From him. From Liam, the man she was about to marry. The man who smiled too wide, who asked too many questions about money, who looked at my home like he was already measuring it for an appraisal. Every instinct I had, every gut feeling honed over 4 decades of reading people in boardrooms, was screaming at me that something was wrong. Dangerously wrong. "I sold my company, David," I said, sliding the signed documents across his mahogany desk. "I didn't sell my intuition. And my intuition is telling me that I'm about to be proven right, in the most painful way possible." I stood up, buttoned my jacket, and walked toward the door. David called after me. "What if you're wrong? What if she never speaks to you again?" I stopped, my hand on the doorknob, and felt my throat tighten. "Then at least she'll be safe," I whispered. What I didn't know then was that Liam would expose himself far sooner than I ever imagined. And in the most spectacular, humiliating way possible. Let me tell you something about $12 million. It sounds like a lottery win, doesn't it? Like I woke up one day and stumbled into wealth. But that number represents something else entirely. It represents 40 years of my life. 40 years of arriving at the office before sunrise and leaving long after my daughter had gone to bed. 40 years of missed recitals, postponed vacations, and cold dinners reheated in the microwave at 10 p.m. I started Henderson Engineering in 1983 with a $20,000 loan, a rented warehouse in Newark, and a dream that felt impossible. My wife, Caroline, believed in me when no one else did. She held our family together while I built something from nothing. When Caroline died 8 years ago, cancer, sudden and cruel, I promised myself 2 things. First, that I'd see this company through to the end, because it was our dream, not just mine. And second, that I'd make sure our daughter, Emily, would never have to struggle the way we did in those early years. So I worked. God, I worked. I grew Henderson Engineering into one of the most respected civil engineering firms on the East Coast. We built bridges, highways, water treatment facilities. We employed 300 people. And when the offer came last year, a buyout from a multinational firm for $12 million, I knew it was time. Time to retire. Time to finally rest. Time to secure Emily's future. But here's what I didn't anticipate. I didn't anticipate that the moment I mentioned the sale to Emily, everything would change. I didn't anticipate that within 2 months, she'd introduce me to Liam. And I certainly didn't anticipate that the money I'd worked my entire life to earn, the money meant to protect her, would become the very thing that put her in danger. Emily brought Liam to Sunday dinner on a cold March evening. I remember opening the door and seeing him standing there with this practiced smile, holding a bottle of wine that probably cost $40, but looked like it cost $200. "Mr. Henderson," he said, gripping my hand just a little too firmly. "I've heard so much about you. Emily says you're a legend in the engineering world. I'm 63 years old. I've sat across from enough salesmen, enough smooth talkers, enough people trying to sell me something I don't need. And within 30 seconds, I knew exactly what Liam was. He was polished. Too polished. The kind of guy who'd rehearsed this meeting in the mirror. Over dinner, he talked nonstop, and I mean nonstop. I'm in the startup space," he said, leaning back in his chair like he owned the place. "Blockchain technology, decentralized finance, angel investing. It's the future, Robert. Traditional industries, no offense, they're dying. The real money now is in disruption." I watched Emily's face as he spoke. She was glowing, hanging on every word like he was some kind of visionary. Meanwhile, I'm sitting there thinking, this guy hasn't asked her a single question in 20 minutes. He asked me about the house, though. Oh, he asked about that. This is a beautiful property, Robert. What? 4,000 square feet. 5. Must be worth a fortune in this market. When they finally left that night, Emily hugged me at the door and whispered, "Isn't he amazing, Dad?" I smiled and kissed her forehead. But inside, I felt something cold settle in my chest. It wasn't jealousy. It wasn't me being overprotective. It was the same instinct that told me when a contractor was padding their bid, when a client was about to back out of a deal, when something was fundamentally wrong. And everything about Liam was wrong. The engagement announcement came 6 weeks later. 6 weeks. Emily called me, breathless with excitement, and said, "Dad, Liam proposed. We're getting married." I felt my stomach drop. I tried to sound happy. I really did. But all I could think was, 6 weeks. You've known this man for 6 weeks and you're planning to spend your life with him. But I bit my tongue. I congratulated her. I said all the right things, and then Liam got on the phone. "Robert, we're gonna be family, man. I can't wait." There was something in his voice, something eager and hungry, that made my skin crawl. The questions started almost immediately after that. Casual at first, slipped into conversations like they meant nothing. We'd be at a coffee shop and Liam would say, "So Robert, this company sale, that's gotta be a pretty big payday, right? 7 figures. 8. I'd smile vaguely and change the subject. At a family barbecue, he cornered me by the grill. "You know, Robert, you should really think about diversifying your assets. Cryptocurrency is exploding right now. I've got connections. I could set you up with a portfolio. Hell, I could manage it for you and Emily. Keep it in the family." The way he said, "keep it in the family," made my blood run cold. This wasn't a son-in-law offering advice. This was a shark circling. I started giving him nothing. Vague answers, non-committal nods. "I've got a financial advisor handling things," I'd say. "It's all taken care of." But Liam kept pushing. Every single time I saw him, there was another angle, another pitch, another way he could help me with my money. And Emily, she didn't see it. She'd laugh and say, "Liam's just trying to be helpful, Dad. He's good with investments. You should listen to him." I'd watch her defend him, watch her make excuses, and I felt this helpless frustration building inside me. How could someone so smart, my brilliant daughter, who graduated summa cum laude, who had her master's degree, how could she be so blind? I waited until 2 months before the wedding. Emily and I were having lunch at her favorite bistro downtown, the place where we used to go every Saturday after her mother died. I thought maybe, in that familiar setting, she'd hear me, really hear me. I ordered our usual, chicken paninis and iced tea, and when the waiter left, I took a breath and said, "Sweetheart, I need to talk to you about something important." She smiled, unsuspecting. "Sure, Dad. What's up?" I reached across the table and took her hand. "I want you to consider a prenuptial agreement." The smile disappeared instantly. Her hand went rigid in mine. "What?" she said quietly, like she hadn't heard me correctly. I kept my voice gentle, calm. "It's just a precaution, Emily. A piece of paper to protect what your mother and I built. It's not about Liam." But she cut me off. "Not about Liam, Dad. It's completely about Liam. You're saying you don't trust him." Her voice was rising. People at nearby tables were starting to look. I squeezed her hand. "I'm saying I want to protect your future. The money from the company sale. That's your mother's legacy. That's your security." "I just want to make sure..." "Make sure what?" She yanked her hand away. "That I don't make some terrible mistake. That I'm too stupid to choose the right man." Her eyes were filling with tears, and I felt my heart breaking. "Emily, no, that's not what I'm saying at all." But she was standing up now, grabbing her purse. "You know what I think, Dad. I think you can't stand seeing me happy. I think you're so miserable and lonely that you can't handle me having someone who loves me." The words hit me like a punch to the chest. I stood up too. "That's not fair." She laughed bitterly. "No? Then what is it? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you think my fiancé is some kind of gold digger." I didn't deny it. I couldn't. And my silence was all the confirmation she needed. She stared at me for a long moment, tears streaming down her face, and then she said the words that would haunt me. "If you can't trust my judgment, then maybe you shouldn't come to the wedding." And she walked out, leaving me standing there in the middle of that restaurant, surrounded by strangers and shattered pieces of the relationship I'd spent 28 years building. She didn't answer my calls for 3 days. 3 days of silence that felt like 3 years. I left voicemails, sent texts, nothing angry, just desperate. "Emily, please, let's talk about this. I love you. Call me back." Finally, on the 4th day, she agreed to meet me at her apartment. I drove over with this fragile hope that maybe we could fix this, that maybe I could make her understand. But when she opened the door, Liam was standing right behind her, arms crossed, that fake concern plastered all over his face. "Robert," he said, like we were old friends. "Come in. Let's all sit down and talk about this like adults." I wanted to tell him to stay out of it, that this was between me and my daughter, but Emily was already walking to the couch, and I followed. We sat in her living room, the apartment I'd helped her move into, the furniture I'd helped her pick out, and it felt like enemy territory. I tried again. "Emily, I'm not trying to control you. I just want to make sure you're protected. A prenup doesn't mean I don't trust you. It means..." And that's when Liam interrupted me. "Robert, I think I understand what's really going on here." He put his arm around Emily, pulling her close. "You're scared. You worked your whole life for that money, and now you're terrified someone's going to take it away. I get it. But here's what you need to understand. I love your daughter. I don't care about your money. I have my own ventures, my own investments. I'm doing just fine." The way he said it, so smooth and practiced, made me want to scream. But before I could respond, Emily turned to me with this look of absolute betrayal. "Dad, if you make me choose between you and Liam, I'm going to choose him." The room went silent. I felt like someone had knocked the wind out of me. "Emily," I said quietly, "don't do this." But she stood up, and Liam stood with her, his hand protectively on her shoulder like he was shielding her from me. "I think you should leave," she said, her voice shaking. "And if you can't support my marriage, if you can't be happy for me, then don't come to the wedding." I looked at my daughter, the little girl I'd raised alone, the woman I'd sacrificed everything for, and I saw a stranger, someone Liam had already gotten to. I walked to the door, stopped, and turned back one last time. "I love you, Emily. And when you realize what he is, I'll be here." Liam smirked. Emily said nothing, and I left. I didn't sleep that night, or the next. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying the conversation over and over, wondering if there was something else I could have said, some magic combination of words that would have made her see the truth. But by the 3rd sleepless night, something shifted in me. I realized I couldn't argue with her blindness. I couldn't force her to see what she refused to see, but I could protect her anyway. Even if she hated me for it, especially if she hated me for it. That's when I called David, my attorney. "I need to see you," I said, "tomorrow morning. First thing." He heard something in my voice, urgency, desperation, and he cleared his schedule. When I walked into his office, I had a plan I'd been forming in the dark hours of those sleepless nights. "David, I want to put the $12 million in an irrevocable trust. Emily is the beneficiary, but I remain the trustee. She'll receive a monthly distribution, something generous, enough to live comfortably. But she can't access the principal. Ever.
And more importantly, it can't be used as collateral for loans, can't be touched in a divorce, can't be signed away. David leaned back in his chair, studying me. Robert, you understand what you're doing here. This is permanent. Once you sign this, you can't undo it. You're essentially locking away your own money. I nodded. I know exactly what I'm doing. If Liam marries her for the money, he's going to get nothing.
And when this marriage falls apart, Emily will still have her security, her future. David was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "And if she finds out you did this, she'll never forgive you." I felt my throat tighten. I know. We spent the next week drafting the documents. Every clause, every contingency, every protection I could think of. The trust was airtight. No loopholes, no ways around it. Emily would be taken care of for life, but on my terms, safe terms. And Liam? Liam would never touch a dime. On the day I signed the papers, exactly 1 week before the wedding, David asked me one last time, "Are you sure?" I thought about Emily's face, the way she'd looked at me with such anger and disappointment. I thought about Caroline, about what she would have wanted me to do. And then I signed my name. The wedding invitation sat on my kitchen counter for 2 weeks. Cream-colored cardstock with elegant gold lettering. "Emily Henderson and Liam Cartwright request the honor of your presence." I must have picked it up 100 times, running my thumb over my daughter's name, wondering if I should even go. She hadn't called me, hadn't texted. As far as I knew, she still didn't want me there. But the morning of the wedding, I put on my best suit, the navy one Caroline always said made me look distinguished. And I made a decision. I was her father, and even if she hated me, even if I was wrong about Liam, though every fiber of my being knew I wasn't, I needed to be there. The venue was this gorgeous estate in the countryside, all manicured gardens and white tents and string lights that would look magical once the sun went down. I arrived late, slipping into the back row just as the ceremony was starting. I watched Emily walk down the aisle, no father to give her away, because I'd forfeited that right. And she looked so beautiful it hurt. She wore her mother's veil. That detail broke something in me. When she reached the altar and took Liam's hands, I saw him whisper something to her and she laughed. And for just a moment, I let myself hope. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe he really did love her. Maybe I'd just destroyed my relationship with my daughter over paranoia. At the reception, I kept to myself, nursing a whiskey at a table in the corner. I figured I'd stay for an hour, just long enough to not be rude, and then slip out. But then Liam saw me. He came bounding over, his face flushed from champagne, and threw his arm around my shoulders like we were best friends. "Robert, you made it. I knew you'd come around, buddy." He was drunk already. I could smell it on him. But he was all smiles and backslaps. "Come on, sit at our table. You're family now." Emily glanced over, saw me, and her face went carefully neutral. Not angry, not happy, just blank. And somehow, that was worse. Dinner was almost over when Liam's best man handed him the microphone for the groom's speech. The room quieted down, guests turning their chairs toward the head table, smiling and expectant. Liam stood up, swaying slightly, and I felt this prickle of unease run down my spine. He'd been drinking heavily all night. I'd been watching, and there was something reckless in his eyes now, something unguarded. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his words slightly slurred, "I want to thank you all for being here on the most important day of my life." Standard stuff. People clapped politely. Emily was smiling up at him, radiant and trusting. But then his gaze drifted across the room and landed on me. His smile changed. It became sharper, meaner. "You know," he said, pointing in my direction, "I especially want to thank my new father-in-law, Robert Henderson, for being here tonight." A spotlight swung toward me, and suddenly every eye in the room was on my face. My stomach dropped. "I know," Liam laughed. That ugly, drunk laugh. "I know that old Robert here didn't think I was good enough for his little girl. Isn't that right, Robert?" People shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Emily's smile faltered. "Liam," she said quietly, tugging at his sleeve. But he shook her off. No, it's okay, babe. Let me say this." He took another swig of champagne directly from the bottle on the table. "Robert thought I was some kind of gold digger, some loser trying to marry into money. He even asked Emily for a prenup. Can you believe that?" There were gasps now, murmurs rippling through the crowd. I sat frozen, my hands gripping the edge of the table. Emily's face had gone pale. "But guess what, Robert?" Liam raised his glass toward me in a mock toast, and I saw something in his expression that made my blood run cold. It was triumph, pure, undiluted triumph. I won. Liam wasn't finished. Oh God, he wasn't even close to finished. He turned back to the crowd, microphone clutched in his fist like a weapon, and his grin widened. "In fact, I've got a little surprise announcement to make tonight. Something Emily and I have been planning." I watched my daughter's face. She looked confused, glancing around like she was trying to figure out what he was talking about. She clearly had no idea what was coming. Neither did anyone else. The room was dead silent now. That awful kind of silence where you know something terrible is about to happen, but you can't stop it. "Emily and I have decided," Liam paused for dramatic effect, swaying on his feet. "We've decided to use the $12 million from Robert's company sale to launch our new venture. I'm talking about Liam Ventures. Baby! Our first official investment as a married couple." He threw his arms up like he'd just scored a touchdown. A few people clapped awkwardly, uncertainly, but most just sat there stunned. I couldn't breathe. I watched Emily's expression shift from confusion to dawning horror. "And you know what our first purchase is gonna be," Liam continued, oblivious to the room's mood. "A private jet. That's right. No more flying commercial like peasants. We're talking Gulfstream, leather seats, the whole 9 yards." The champagne bottle slipped from his hand and shattered on the floor. But he didn't even notice. He was too busy painting this picture of their future. Boats, vacation homes, luxury cars, all funded by money that didn't exist. Not for him, anyway. I sat there watching this train wreck unfold, and I felt no satisfaction, no sense of being right. I just felt sick, because I knew what was coming next. I knew the exact moment when Emily would turn to him and ask the question that would destroy everything. And sure enough, she stood up slowly, her white dress rustling in the horrible silence, and said in a voice barely above a whisper, "Liam, what are you talking about?" Liam blinked at her, the drunk confidence on his face faltering for just a second. "What do you mean? What am I talking about?" "I'm talking about our money, babe. The 12 million, our future." He reached for her hand, but she pulled away, and I saw genuine fear flash across his face. Emily's voice came out stronger now, louder. "Liam, we never discussed any of this. We never talked about a jet, or a company, or..." She looked out at the 200 guests staring at them, and I could see her trying to hold herself together. "What 12 million? That's when Liam's expression changed. The mask slipped completely. The charm, the smooth-talking entrepreneur persona. It all evaporated, and what was left was something ugly and entitled. "Your inheritance, Emily. The money from your dad's company. Jesus Christ, did you think we were going to just let it sit in some boring-ass savings account?" He laughed, but it sounded panicked now. "That's our money. You're my wife now. What's yours is mine. That's how marriage works." The room erupted in whispers. Emily's mother's sister, Aunt Linda, stood up from her table, her face twisted in disgust. Several other family members followed. Emily just stood there, frozen, her bouquet trembling in her hands. And then, slowly, so slowly it felt like watching a building collapse in slow motion, she turned and looked across the room, Her eyes found mine. We locked gazes. And in that moment, I saw everything. I saw the realization crashing over her like a wave. I saw her understanding, finally, exactly what Liam was and what I'd been trying to protect her from. I saw her remember every warning I'd given her, every concern she'd dismissed. Her face crumpled. Tears started streaming down her cheeks, cutting tracks through her makeup. Her mouth opened like she wanted to say something, to me, to him, to anyone, but no sound came out. Liam was still talking, his voice rising in desperation as he tried to salvage the situation. Baby, wait, I didn't mean it like that. I just meant we could be smart with the money, invest it, grow it together. But Emily wasn't looking at him anymore. She was still staring at me, and the pain in her eyes was unbearable. I saw her mouth form the words, "I'm sorry," though no sound came out. I wanted to go to her, to hold her, to tell her it was okay, but I couldn't move, because this wasn't my moment. This was hers. She needed to see this through. One of Liam's groomsmen grabbed his arm, trying to pull him away from the microphone, but Liam shoved him off. "No, everyone needs to hear this. Robert has been poisoning her against me from day one. He's controlling and manipulative, and he can't stand that Emily chose me over him." His voice was getting shrill now, panicked. People were standing up, gathering their things, heading for the exits. The bridesmaids had surrounded Emily, forming a protective circle. I could see her shoulders shaking as she sobbed, and Liam just kept digging, kept ranting. This is exactly what he wanted. He wanted to ruin this day. He couldn't stand seeing us happy. I stood up then, slowly, deliberately. Every eye in the room that wasn't already on the train wreck at the head table turned to me. I buttoned my jacket, the same navy suit Caroline loved, and I didn't say a word. Not one word. Because what was there to say? I'd been proven right in the most devastating, humiliating, public way possible, and there was no satisfaction in it. Only grief. I walked toward the exit, my footsteps echoing in the now half-empty ballroom. As I passed Emily's table, I stopped for just a moment. She looked up at me through her tears, mascara running down her face, her beautiful wedding day destroyed. Our eyes met one last time. I wanted to say something. I wanted to tell her I loved her, that I forgave her, that everything would be okay. But my throat was too tight, so I just nodded, a small, sad acknowledgement that we'd both survived this nightmare. And I kept walking. Behind me, I heard Liam shouting, "That's right, run away, you've ruined everything, you miserable old man." I pushed through the doors into the cool evening air, and the sounds of the chaos inside faded. I got in my car, gripped the steering wheel with both hands, and finally let myself feel it. The weight of being right. The cost of protecting someone who didn't want to be protected. The marriage lasted 4 months. 4 months of Emily discovering that Liam had maxed out 3 credit cards in her name, that his blockchain startup was actually just a series of failed crypto day trading schemes, and that the man she'd married was buried under nearly $200,000 in debt he'd been hiding from her. The divorce was swift and brutal. Liam hired an aggressive attorney who immediately went after what he thought was Emily's $12 million inheritance. I'll never forget the look on that lawyer's face when David presented the irrevocable trust documents in court, the realization that there was nothing to claim, nothing to split, nothing Liam could touch. He walked away with nothing. Less than nothing, actually, because Emily countersued for the credit card fraud. 3 weeks after the divorce was finalized, Emily showed up at my door. It was raining, one of those cold autumn storms, and she stood on my porch, soaked to the bone, her eyes red from crying. "Dad," she said, and her voice broke on the word. I didn't make her ask. I just opened my arms, and she fell into them the way she used to when she was little and had scraped her knee or had a nightmare. We stood there in the doorway while she sobbed into my shoulder, and I held my daughter and felt something that had been shattered slowly begin to piece itself back together. "I'm so sorry," she kept saying. "You were right. You were right about everything, and I was so stupid." "Shh," I whispered, stroking her hair. "You weren't stupid. You were in love. And sometimes love makes us blind." We've been rebuilding our relationship slowly, carefully, like engineers constructing a bridge that needs to hold real weight. She comes over for Sunday dinners now. We don't talk about Liam much, though sometimes she'll mention something, a red flag she missed, a lie she believed, and I listen without judgment. The trust fund is still intact, all $12 million, generating monthly income that gives her security and independence. She's back in grad school now, pursuing her doctorate. And me? I'm learning something I should have known all along. Sometimes protecting the people you love means letting them make their own mistakes, even when it breaks your heart. Protecting a legacy you built with your own hands is one thing. But what happens when you need to protect your wife's life from an evil that's already inside your home? When I returned home after 2 weeks away at my mother's bedside, I found my house dark, and I heard a sound coming from the basement. The truth I discovered was darker than any nightmare I could have imagined. Click on the story that appears on your screen to find out what happened.